I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Right now, somewhere between waking and sleep, your brain is already beginning to shift. Neurons quieting, the day softening at its edges. Tonight, you'll discover what happens when the dreaming mind wakes up inside its own creation, and understand why those vivid, electric, impossible dreams might be carrying messages your waking mind has been waiting to receive. Welcome to Sleepy Science. Wherever you are right now, perhaps already settled in the dark, eyes heavy, the world outside growing quieter, allow yourself this particular kind of stillness. We'll journey through 100 fascinating facts about lucid dreams and the waking mind. From the hidden architecture of sleep, where awareness flickers on inside closed eyes, to the science of why your dreaming brain sends signals you can actually read, to the ancient mystery of what consciousness is truly doing when the body finally lets go. This thoughtful journey through the dreaming mind builds quiet bridges between searching minds. Your gentle support, a like, subscribe, or a soft share, creates a pathway for more curious souls to discover this peaceful space, and brings us closer to protecting this sanctuary for every tired mind who finds their way here. One dream at a time, one sleepy soul at a time. Your presence here is what keeps this light on. Let yourself settle completely here. Feel your jaw unclench, your breath deepen naturally. You don't need to hold on to any of this knowledge tonight. Just sense that soothing heaviness beginning to move through you, like your consciousness slowly dimming its brightness, thoughts dissolving into the gentle fog of approaching sleep, carried safely down into the dark. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're floating where memories rest safely in gentle darkness. Let your mind merge with infinite peace. And now we begin. A lucid dream is a dream in which you become aware that you are dreaming. The word lucid simply means clear. And in that moment of clarity, something extraordinary happens. The observing mind and the dreaming mind exist at the same time. Most people experience at least one lucid dream in their lifetime, often by accident, often just once. But for some, it becomes a repeatable, even controllable experience. Tonight, we explore what that experience is, what it means, and what the science behind it quietly reveals. The first recorded scientific evidence that lucid dreaming is a real, measurable state came from a sleep researcher named Keith Hearn, working at the University of Hull in England. In April 1975, his subject, an experienced lucid dreamer named Alan Worsley, agreed to signal awareness by moving his eyes in a prearranged pattern once he became lucid. Those eye movements, captured by an electroculograph during verified REM sleep, crossed the boundary from dream to scientific record. It was, as Hearn later described it, like receiving signals from another world. The findings were published through limited academic channels, and it was not until Stephen LaBerge independently replicated the work at Stanford using full polysomnography in 1978 that the scientific community more broadly took notice. But the moment itself, April 12, 1975, at 8:07 in the morning, remains the first recorded signal from within a human dream. Lucid dreams most commonly occur during REM sleep. rapid eye movement sleep, the stage your brain enters roughly 90 minutes after falling asleep. REM sleep is when the brain becomes highly active, producing the vivid, story-like experiences we recognize as dreams. Interestingly, the brain during REM sleep looks remarkably similar to the brain during focused waking thought. The difference between dreaming and thinking, it turns out, is smaller than most people imagine. During a lucid dream, a specific part of the brain lights up that remains quieter during ordinary dreaming. That region is the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for self-awareness, decision-making, and the sense of being a thinking, choosing individual. In regular dreams, the prefrontal cortex is largely offline, which is why dream logic feels so normal while you're in it. In lucid dreams, it comes back online, partially, softly, like a lamp switching on in a room that was almost dark. Research using neuroimaging has confirmed that lucid dreamers show elevated gamma wave activity during lucid episodes, particularly in the frontal and parietal regions. Gamma waves, oscillating between roughly 30 and 100 cycles per second, are associated with conscious awareness and cognitive integration in waking life. Their presence during sleep was something researchers had not anticipated. And that presence continues to reshape what scientists believe about the boundary between sleep and waking consciousness. Approximately 55% of people report having had at least one lucid dream during their lives. Of those, around 23% report experiencing lucid dreams at least once a month. These figures come from a meta-analysis of 34 studies spanning 50 years of research, drawing on data from more than 24,000 people across multiple countries. Regular, frequent lucid dreamers, those who experience them several times a week, appear to have brains that differ in certain measurable ways, particularly in regions associated with self-reflection and metacognition. The experience of a lucid dream exists on a spectrum. On one end is simple lucidity, the quiet recognition that you are dreaming, without any control or direction. On the other end is full narrative control, the ability to choose where to go, who to speak with, what to explore. Most natural lucid dreams fall somewhere in the middle, aware but loosely guided, like watching a film and somehow also being in it, aware of both dimensions at once. There is a phenomenon called wake-initiated lucid dreaming, in which a person transitions directly from waking consciousness into a dream state without any break in awareness. The body falls asleep. Heart rate slows. Muscles relax. Breathing deepens. While the mind remains alert and observing. People who experience this describe a hypnagogic phase. Flickers of imagery, fragments of sound, geometric patterns that slowly coalesce into a full dream environment. It is one of the gentler edges of what human consciousness can produce. Children are significantly more likely to have spontaneous lucid dreams than adults. Some researchers believe this is because children's brains are still developing the boundary between imagination and reality, making the transition between states more fluid. As the prefrontal cortex matures and consolidates through adolescence, the separation between dreaming and waking tends to increase, and spontaneous lucidity often decreases. In a certain sense, children may naturally live closer to the edge of awareness that adult lucid dreamers work to rediscover. One of the most consistent findings in lucid dream research is that the experience is not random. Lucid dreams cluster. They are more likely to occur during stress, during periods of intense creative engagement, during illness recovery, and, interestingly, in the early morning hours before full waking, when REM cycles are longest and most frequent. The brain, it seems, becomes most capable of self-observation when it is already approaching the surface of sleep. The question of what lucid dreams are warning you about is not metaphysical. It is neurological. When the dreaming brain becomes aware of itself, it often surfaces material that waking life has been processing in the background. Unresolved emotions, lingering decisions, the residue of experiences that haven't yet been fully integrated. The lucid dream becomes a kind of mirror, held up by the very mechanism of consciousness looking at itself. Nightmares are one of the most common triggers for spontaneous lucidity. When a dream becomes frightening enough, the mind sometimes jolts into awareness. A protective response. The fear crosses a threshold, and suddenly the dreamer recognizes the unreality of what they're experiencing. In these moments, lucidity functions almost like a circuit breaker in the nervous system, interrupting a distressing narrative before it overwhelms the sleeping body. Research into nightmare disorder, a clinically recognized condition involving frequent, distressing nightmares that disrupt sleep and waking function, has explored lucid dreaming as a therapeutic tool. A technique combining imagery rehearsal with lucidity induction has shown measurable reductions in nightmare frequency and severity in some populations, including those navigating the particular kind of sleep distress that follows difficult life experiences. The mechanism appears to involve the dreamer's ability to consciously alter the dream's trajectory, reducing the fear response at its neurological source. The amygdala, the brain's emotional processing hub, responsible for fear, threat detection, and the fight or flight response, is highly active during ordinary dreaming. During lucid dreaming, there is evidence of modulation in amygdala activity. When the prefrontal cortex comes online, it appears to exert some regulatory influence over emotional processing, the same relationship it holds during conscious emotion regulation in waking life. A dreamer who becomes lucid during a nightmare may physically experience less physiological fear, even while the frightening content continues. Some of the most compelling early work on lucid dreaming came not from sleep laboratories, but from ancient traditions. Tibetan Buddhist monks have practiced a form of dream awareness known as dream yoga for over 1,000 years, a discipline in which the practitioner trains to maintain conscious awareness through all stages of sleep, including dreaming. When Western researchers began studying experienced Tibetan practitioners in sleep labs, they found unusual patterns of awareness and neural activity during sleep that mapped in unexpected ways onto what was being described scientifically as lucid dreaming. Aristotle described a phenomenon in approximately 350 BCE that historians now recognize as an early written account of lucid dreaming. He noted that during sleep, something within the sleeper sometimes recognizes that what is happening is a dream. This observation, recorded in a treatise on sleep and wakefulness, went largely unexamined for centuries, until the modern scientific study of consciousness caught up to what Aristotle had quietly noticed in his own sleep. The Dutch physician and writer Frederik van Eden coined the term lucid dreaming in 1913. After keeping a detailed personal dream journal for over 2 decades, in which he carefully documented experiences of dreaming while knowing he was dreaming, he categorized hundreds of distinct dream types and noted that lucid dreams had a particular clarity and coherence that set them apart, a quality he described as feeling more real than ordinary dreams. Not less. That quality of heightened realness within an unreal state is something virtually every lucid dreamer independently reports. A technique called the MILD method, mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, was developed by psychologist Stephen LaBerge and remains one of the best-studied induction techniques available. It involves waking briefly after several hours of sleep, then returning to sleep while repeating a focused intention to recognize the dream state. It works. Researchers believe, by priming the prospective memory system, the same mechanism that helps you remember to do something in the future, to activate recognition during the transition back into REM sleep. Another technique, reality testing, involves regularly questioning throughout the day whether one is dreaming. Common methods include attempting to push a finger through the palm of the other hand, or checking whether written text remains stable when looked at twice. Over time, these habitual reality checks appear to increase the likelihood that the checking behavior will spontaneously occur inside a dream. And when it does, and when the text shifts or the finger passes through, the result is lucidity. The WILD technique, wake-initiated lucid dream, involves maintaining consciousness during the sleep onset process itself. Practitioners typically remain still while allowing the body to enter sleep paralysis, then transition into a fully formed dream environment. Sleep paralysis, which involves temporary muscle immobility during the REM transition, is often experienced as unsettling when it occurs involuntarily. In the WILD technique, practitioners attempt to remain calm within this state, observing it rather than resisting it, until the dream architecture assembles around them. Sleep paralysis itself, the temporary inability to move as the body transitions into or out of REM sleep, has been linked anecdotally to some of the most vivid and disorienting experiences in human sleep history. The folklore of many cultures contains figures associated with night visitation, a weight upon the chest, the sense of a presence in the room, the inability to move or cry out. What these accounts describe is now understood to be the experience of sleep paralysis combined with hypnagogic hallucinations. The dreaming mind activating before the waking body has fully recovered its motor control. In studies examining the phenomenology of lucid dreams, what they feel like from the inside, researchers found that lucid dreamers consistently report a heightened sense of emotional vividness compared to ordinary dreams. Colors appear more saturated. Sounds are more distinct. Textures and physical sensations feel more real. This paradox, that an acknowledged unreality feels more vivid than ordinary dreaming, has interested philosophers as well as neuroscientists. It suggests that awareness itself amplifies experience, even within a simulated world. The dreaming brain uses the same neural pathways for imagined action as the waking brain uses for real action. When a dreamer runs in a dream, The motor planning areas of the brain activate similarly to when the waking body runs. With one important exception, the brainstem actively suppresses the signals before they reach the muscles, preventing the body from physically acting out the dream. This suppression is the mechanism that produces sleep paralysis during REM. Without it, the sleeping body would enact every dream. Researchers have demonstrated that specific motor actions performed during a verified lucid dream correlate with measurable changes in brain activity that mirror waking motor activity. In one paradigm, lucid dreamers agreed, in advance, to clench their dream hand a specific number of times. Their actual hand showed no movement, but the motor cortex lit up in a countable, verifiable pattern. The dreaming mind was performing a real action in a simulated world, and the brain was recording it as real experience. So, what are lucid dreams trying to tell you? The first answer that the science offers is this: they are telling you that awareness is not the same as wakefulness. The brain can be asleep and still observe. It can be inside a simulation and still know it. The capacity for self-reflection that you use to navigate your waking life does not belong exclusively to waking. It travels with you into the dark. It is, in a meaningful sense, the most portable thing you own. Let's pause here and notice your body. As you breathe out slowly, appreciate each tiny cell inside. Trillions of organisms working in silence. Heart beating, lungs breathing, brain thinking, all without your command. Every cell you have today will be completely replaced within a matter of years. You are in the middle of a continuous renewal, and tonight is part of that process. Notice the gentle sensations on your skin, in your muscles, along your spine. You are a complete ecosystem, diverse, self-balancing. Now we continue. Memory and lucid dreaming are deeply intertwined. The ability to become lucid in a dream depends on a particular kind of memory called prospective memory, the capacity to remember a future intention. When you set the intention to recognize dreaming before sleep, you are asking your memory system to carry that instruction forward into an altered state of consciousness. The fact that this works at all reveals something profound about how memory persists across the transition from waking to sleep. Dream journaling, the practice of recording dreams immediately upon waking, is consistently associated with increased lucid dreaming frequency across multiple studies. Researchers believe this works for two reasons. It trains the mind to attend to dream content more carefully, and it strengthens the ability to recall dreams, which is a prerequisite for recognizing them as dreams while they unfold. A dream you cannot remember is a dream from which you cannot learn. Certain substances have been shown to increase the frequency of vivid and lucid dreams. Among the most studied are acetylcholinesterase inhibitors, compounds that increase the availability of acetylcholine in the brain, a neurotransmitter strongly associated with REM sleep. Galantamine, derived originally from the snowdrop flower, has been explored specifically in lucid dreaming research with measurable results in controlled trials. These findings point toward the biochemical conditions that make dreaming awareness more likely. Melatonin, a hormone produced by the pineal gland in response to darkness, plays a central role in regulating the sleep-wake cycle. At higher doses than the body naturally produces, melatonin has been reported by many users to intensify dream vividness and, in some cases, increase lucid dreaming frequency. The mechanism is not fully understood, but may involve melatonin's interaction with the serotonin system, which itself plays a complex role in REM regulation. The relationship between lucid dreaming and waking creativity has been examined in several studies. People who frequently report lucid dreams also tend to score higher on certain measures of divergent thinking, the capacity to generate multiple novel solutions to a problem. Whether lucid dreaming trains this capacity, or whether creative minds are simply more inclined toward lucidity, remains unclear. What researchers consistently find is that the mental flexibility required to recognize one reality while inhabiting another appears to correlate with broader cognitive flexibility. Lucid dreams have been explored as a context for skill rehearsal. Athletes, musicians, and performers have reported deliberately practicing physical and cognitive skills within lucid dreams. Small studies examining this have found measurable improvements in waking performance following dream-based practice, particularly for fine motor skills. The brain, it appears, does not fully distinguish between imagined and real practice when the imagining is sufficiently vivid and intentional. The sleeping body is resting. The practicing mind is not. Research examining the relationship between lucid dreaming and emotional processing has found that those who dream lucidly more often tend to show lower rates of rumination. The repetitive, intrusive replaying of distressing thoughts associated with anxiety and depression. Researchers have proposed that lucid dreaming may serve a kind of emotional ventilation function, offering a regulated space in which unresolved material can be experienced and gradually metabolized before waking life resumes. There is a phenomenon called false awakening, distinct from but related to lucid dreaming, in which a person dreams that they have woken up, proceeds to perform normal morning activities, and then actually wakes to discover none of it occurred. False awakenings can nest. Some people report waking up within a dream, getting out of bed, and then waking up again. The experience is disorienting and neurologically fascinating. It represents the brain generating a highly convincing simulation of waking reality within the architecture of sleep. The question of whether people can communicate out of a lucid dream in real time, not through retrospective reports, but through ongoing, live signal exchange, has been the focus of a quiet but consequential area of recent research. In a 2021 study published in Current Biology, 4 separate research teams in the United States, France, Germany, and the Netherlands independently demonstrated two-way communication with verified lucid dreamers during confirmed REM sleep. Dreamers responded using pre-agreed eye movements and facial muscle contractions, signals readable in real time by the instruments recording their sleep. Across all 4 laboratories, researchers documented 29 correctly answered exchanges from 6 of the 36 participants tested. Not everyone succeeded. Lucidity itself remained rare and brief, but those who did demonstrated something researchers had long debated: that the sleeping mind can receive a question from the waking world, process it, and send back a coherent reply. The implications of that real-time communication study extend far beyond laboratory curiosity. If the dreaming mind can receive information from the external world and respond intelligibly to it, then sleep is not the communicative isolation it was once assumed to be. More practically, researchers now envision potential applications in which the dreaming state could be used for cognitive testing, creative exploration, or even therapeutic work. A space in which the distress of a difficult dream can be met by a calm external voice. Some researchers have explored whether lucid dreaming frequency is associated with differences in a brain region called the anterior prefrontal cortex, an area linked to self-referential processing and insight. An early study found suggestive differences in gray matter volume between higher and lower lucidity groups. Later research, with more carefully selected frequent lucid dreamers, found the relationship was more clearly expressed in functional connectivity. How richly this region communicates with other parts of the brain, rather than in structure alone. The picture is still forming, but it consistently points toward the same territory. The brain's architecture for self-observation. The sense of time within a lucid dream is often compressed but not uniformly so. Many lucid dreamers report that extended, complex dream narratives that feel long actually correlate with relatively brief periods of REM sleep, while others describe time passing at roughly normal rates. Research using pre-agreed eye movement signaling to mark the passage of time intervals within dreams has found that subjective dream time and objective clock time, while not perfectly aligned, tend to be closer than folk wisdom suggests. Dreams are not always as brief as they seem. Pain processing in dreams has been studied both in standard dreaming and in lucid dreaming contexts. Ordinary dreams rarely contain pain. Even dreams in which injury occurs tend not to generate the physiological pain response. Lucid dreams, however, appear more capable of incorporating pain-like sensations, particularly when the dreamer attempts to test the realness of their environment. This may reflect the partial reactivation of sensory processing that accompanies the return of prefrontal activity. Awareness, it seems, brings not only clarity but a fuller range of sensation. The emotional content of lucid dreams differs systematically from ordinary dreams in ways that researchers find consistently meaningful. Ordinary dreams have a well-documented negativity bias. They contain more negative emotions, more threat scenarios, more loss and conflict than waking life proportionately involves. Lucid dreams tend toward a more balanced or even positive emotional valence. Some researchers interpret this as evidence that the metacognitive awareness characteristic of lucidity actively modulates the emotional processing occurring during the dream, shifting it toward regulation rather than reactivity. At the midpoint of our first major section, a pattern has emerged from the science. Lucid dreams are not anomalies of sleep. They are not glitches or errors in the dreaming system. They appear to represent a natural extension of the brain's capacity for self-awareness, one that most people glimpse briefly and occasionally, but that some brains cultivate more fully. The signals they carry are not unusual or alarming. They are the ordinary signals of a mind observing itself, surfacing what needs attention, and offering, in the language of imagery and sensation, what waking life sometimes cannot. You're still here, still awake, still drifting with us through these stories. Take a slow breath. Notice how your body feels a little softer now, less held together by the day more given over to the night. We're exploring consciousness itself, the very thing doing the exploring right now. Strange, beautiful, and perfectly calm. There's no destination, just the slow, curious drift of one fact into the next. Let's continue. Recurring lucid dreams. Dreams with the same setting, the same figures, the same unresolved scenario, have been reported by lucid dreamers across cultures and across centuries. Psychologists who study recurring dreams suggest that they represent the brain's repeated attempt to process material that has not yet been integrated into the broader memory and emotional network. When the dreamer becomes lucid within a recurring dream and engages it differently, approaching instead of fleeing, asking instead of running, the recurrence sometimes ceases. The relationship between difficult life experiences and dreams is one of the most clinically significant areas of sleep research. In post-traumatic stress, the normal processing function of dreaming appears to become dysregulated. Instead of integrating and gradually diffusing difficult memory, the sleeping brain can replay it with high fidelity and high emotional intensity. Lucid dreaming therapy has been proposed as a way to reintroduce agency into this loop, allowing the dreamer to alter the narrative, introduce safety, or simply observe the content with the regulated awareness that ordinary nightmares do not permit. Research examining the relationship between lucid dreaming and waking psychological states has found that people who dream lucidly more often tend to show greater ease with self-observation, the capacity to notice their own thought patterns without being fully captured by them. This correspondence has led some researchers to propose that the skill built during a lucid dream, recognizing one reality while inhabiting another, may transfer in subtle ways into how the waking mind relates to its own activity. There is evidence that the content of lucid dreams can provide insight into waking psychological states in ways that ordinary dreams do not. Because the lucid dreamer retains some self-awareness, they are capable of noticing symbolic or thematic patterns in the dream that a non-lucid dreamer would simply accept without observation. This metacognitive layer, the dreamer watching themselves dream, creates an unusual form of self-knowledge, a first-person account of unconscious processing, observed in near real time. The concept of the dream ego, the version of yourself that exists within the dream, is a recurring theme in both psychological theory and first-person dream reports. In ordinary dreams, the dream ego is fully absorbed. It has no perspective outside the dream narrative. In lucid dreams, a split occurs. There is the dream ego living the experience, and there is an observing awareness, watching from a slight remove. This split, the thing that makes lucidity possible, is structurally similar to what meditators describe as witness consciousness, the part of awareness that can observe experience without being identical to it. In a series of interviews conducted with habitual lucid dreamers, researchers found a consistent theme in how participants described what their lucid dreams were most often about. Not adventure, not wish fulfillment, not escape. The most common theme was confrontation, with fears, with avoided feelings, with aspects of the self that waking identity tends to suppress or set aside. The dreaming mind, when left to its own devices, appears to have an agenda. And lucidity, rather than redirecting that agenda, often amplifies it. The therapeutic dimension of lucid dreaming has been explored more carefully in recent years. Beyond nightmare disorder, studies have looked at its possible application in chronic pain management, social anxiety, grief processing, and performance-related fear. In each context, the mechanism is similar. The lucid state creates a space in which something difficult can be encountered with both emotional presence and cognitive perspective simultaneously, a combination that ordinary waking experience often struggles to sustain. The phenomenology of meeting a figure in a lucid dream, a character the dreamer can speak to. Question, challenge, occupies a particular place in dream science. When a lucid dreamer asks a dream figure a direct question, the answer often arrives in a way that surprises the dreamer. The answer does not feel generated by the questioning mind, but rather received from something outside it. Neurologically, what appears to be happening is that the response is produced by the unconscious processing systems of the dreamer's own brain. But the subjective experience is one of genuine dialogue. There is a practice described in many cultures called dream incubation, posing a question or problem to the dreaming mind before sleep, with the intention of receiving insight during the dream. This practice has been explored in small-scale studies examining problem-solving during lucid dreams. Results have been modest but intriguing. What researchers consistently note is that the dreaming mind approaches problems differently from the waking mind, less linearly, more associatively, and that this different approach sometimes produces genuinely novel angles on familiar questions. Halfway through our journey tonight, the shape of the answer begins to form. What are lucid dreams trying to warn you about? Perhaps not warn. Exactly. The word carries more urgency than the science suggests. Perhaps the quieter truth is this: lucid dreams are trying to show you something. The dreaming mind, when it wakes inside itself, does not usually reach for terror or catastrophe. It reaches for recognition. It holds up what needs to be seen. And in the act of seeing it clearly, awake within the dream, aware within the dark, the seeing itself becomes the beginning of the answer. Let each breath guide you to realize time is yours, a separate stream that only you are living. While the vast universe continues to spin, expand, change. This second, your breathing and listening is unique. The memory you believe most strongly is actually reconstructed each time you recall it. Right now, your brain is rewriting itself, and tonight is part of that draft. Cherish this present moment. Right now, your time is unrepeatable in all the universe. And we continue. The sleeping brain does not stop learning. Research into memory consolidation, the process by which new information is stabilized into long-term storage, has established that sleep is not passive recovery but active processing. During sleep, the hippocampus replays experiences from the waking day, transferring them to cortical regions for longer-term storage. Lucid dreamers who engage intentionally with specific memories or skills during lucid episodes appear, in small studies, to show enhanced consolidation of those materials compared to passive sleep. There is a deep biological relationship between REM sleep and emotional memory. REM sleep appears to preferentially consolidate emotional experiences, and to do so through a process that gradually reduces the emotional charge attached to a memory while preserving its content. In other words, you remember what happened, but it tends to soften with time and with sleep. When this process is disrupted, the emotional weight of a memory does not diminish in the expected way. Sleep, it turns out, is one of the ways the mind learns to carry difficult things more gently. Lucid dreaming appears to activate the default mode network, the brain's resting state network associated with self-referential thought, daydreaming, and the construction of the narrative self. This network is active when the mind wanders. When we think about the past or future, when we imagine ourselves in hypothetical scenarios, its activation during lucid dreaming suggests that the lucid dream state is something closer to a hybrid. The self-generating narrative of dreaming combined with the self-referential awareness of waking cognition. A persistent question in dream science is whether the content of dreams is random or structured. The evidence increasingly suggests it is structured, shaped by the concerns, emotions, and unresolved material of waking life, but transformed by the dream process into symbolic, associative, sometimes apparently metaphorical form. What is consistent across studies is that the emotional valence of dreams tracks closely with waking emotional life. The dreaming mind is not indifferent to what the waking mind is carrying. People who are skilled at emotion regulation in waking life tend to show different dream content from those who struggle with it. The dreams of skilled regulators tend toward resolution, conflicts that find endpoints, fears that transform into something manageable. The dreams of those who struggle tend toward repetition and escalation. This correspondence between waking regulatory capacity and dream structure has led some researchers to suggest that dreaming is not a separate territory from waking emotional life, but a continuation of it by other means. The relationship between lucid dreaming and anxiety is nuanced. While some research suggests that lucid dreaming can reduce nightmare-related distress and provide a sense of agency in previously frightening dream scenarios, other research notes that highly anxious individuals sometimes experience lucidity as a source of additional difficulty, particularly if they attempt to control the dream and cannot. The awareness that one is dreaming can, in some cases, heighten sensitivity to the content rather than buffer it. Context and intention appear to matter significantly. There is evidence that the frequency of lucid dreaming follows a developmental arc across the lifespan. Children tend toward higher spontaneous lucidity. Frequency typically decreases through adolescence and early adulthood, and in habitual, practitioners can be maintained or redeveloped through dedicated practice into later life. The capacity does not vanish with age. It quiets, and sometimes, with invitation, returns. There is a cultural dimension to how lucid dreaming is interpreted and experienced. In Western psychological frameworks, lucid dreaming tends to be understood as a cognitive or therapeutic phenomenon, something the individual mind does, with or without intention. In many older traditions, dreams are understood as relational, not produced by the individual but received from something beyond the individual self. The experience of the dreaming mind waking up inside the dream, in these frameworks, not a neurological curiosity, but an invitation into a different kind of knowing. Research has noted some patterns in how lucid dreaming manifests across different groups. Some studies suggest differences in the emotional themes most common in lucid dreams, with interpersonal content appearing frequently for some dreamers and spatial or physical exploration for others. These differences, where they appear, likely reflect broader patterns in waking dream content rather than anything specific to lucidity itself. The dreaming mind, lucid or not, tends to work with what the waking mind has been carrying. The experience of flying in a dream is among the most universally reported and consistently sought in lucid dreaming. Researchers who study the phenomenology of dream flight note that it is almost never described as frightening, even in individuals who are uneasy with heights while awake. The freedom it represents in the dream context appears to be physiologically distinct from height-related fear in waking life. Dream flight may simply be the dreaming mind expressing the oldest and most fundamental form of physical liberation the body can imagine. The physics of the lucid dream world is not consistent. Many lucid dreamers report that the environment behaves somewhat lawfully. Light falls realistically. Surfaces feel solid. Objects have weight, but that certain physical laws are optional. Gravity can be suspended. Walls can be passed through. Time can move in unexpected directions. The dreaming brain, freed from the constraints of sensory input, constructs a world that is recognizably based on the real world, but in which the rules are more suggestions than requirements. This selective lawfulness reflects which brain regions are and are not actively online during the dream. There is research into what happens to the dreaming brain during intentional engagement with potentially difficult sensations in lucid dreams. When a dreamer deliberately touches something that would carry an uncomfortable quality in waking life, the brain activates relevant processing regions without necessarily generating the full experiential signal. This partial activation, present but not completing into full experience, mirrors what neuroscientists observe during certain kinds of mindful observation in waking life. Awareness, in both cases, appears to change the experience of the signal without eliminating it. The role of the body in lucid dreaming extends beyond the suppression of motor output during REM sleep. Research has found that the physiological state of the sleeping body can influence the content and quality of the lucid dream. Physical comfort, temperature regulation, and hydration levels all appear to affect dream vividness and stability. The body is not absent from the dreaming experience. It provides the substrate, the physical conditions, from which the dream unfolds, and its state inflects what the dreaming mind produces. One of the more gently noted features of the lucid dream state is its potential for emotional richness, an intensity that can exceed even that of ordinary dreaming. Lucid dreamers report experiences of unusual beauty, a particular kind of calm, and a sense of connection that they struggle to describe afterward in waking language. These peak experiences within the lucid dream appear neurologically to involve activity in limbic and frontal regions associated with both deep emotion and reflective awareness simultaneously, a combination that is relatively uncommon in ordinary waking experience. We are 3/4 of the way through our journey, and the answer has been assembling itself from many directions at once. Lucid dreams show the brain at its most philosophically interesting, aware of its own processing, capable of reflecting on its own states. able to observe the machinery of consciousness from within the machinery itself. What are they showing you? Here is what the accumulated research suggests. They are revealing the gap between what you carry and what you've examined. The gap between the life you're living and the life that's asking, quietly, to be seen. The neuroscience of insight. The sudden, felt recognition of a solution or truth that was previously unavailable, places its physical correlate in the right anterior temporal lobe, and finds that the moments preceding insight are often characterized by a shift toward internal focus and quiet. Dreams, which by nature draw the mind entirely inward, create the physiological conditions for insight regularly. Lucid dreams, which add awareness to that inward focus, appear to create those conditions with unusual density. The dreaming mind may be not just processing, but finding. There are reports across the scientific literature of individuals who experience lucid dreaming, but have difficulty recalling it upon waking. A paradox that reveals something important about the relationship between lucidity and recall. Becoming aware within the dream is a distinct event from remembering that awareness afterward. The fragility of dream memory means that lucid episodes may occur more frequently than reported, simply failing to survive the transition back into waking consciousness. Training dream recall and training lucidity may be inseparable practices. The question of whether animals experience anything analogous to dreaming has been studied through observation of REM-like behavior in mammals and birds. Animals in REM sleep show eye movements, twitching, and neural patterns consistent with the replay of waking experiences. Whether they have any analog to the self-awareness that constitutes human lucid dreaming is entirely unknown. It is one of those questions that sits at the border of what science can currently ask and what consciousness, in its quietest moments, continues to wonder. There is a practice described in several communities of performers and athletes: deliberate dream visualization. Before sleep, practitioners construct highly detailed mental images of the scenario they intend to rehearse, then enter sleep with the intention of encountering and engaging that content within the dream. While not formal lucid dreaming induction, this practice draws on the same basic principle, that the dreaming brain can be prepared by the waking mind, and that the prepared dream is not passive but active. The default mode network's activity in lucid dreaming has prompted researchers to consider what the lucid dream might offer to the study of consciousness more broadly. Consciousness, the sense of being someone having an experience, has been one of the most enduring open questions in philosophy and science. The lucid dream represents a natural experiment in which consciousness is present in the absence of most of its usual ingredients. Sensory input from the external world, accurate motor feedback, and the full waking prefrontal architecture. What remains is consciousness at its most reduced, and it is still, unmistakably, present. A notable feature of the lucid dream landscape is its consistency across individual dreamers. The same types of environments appear with unusual frequency. Vast buildings with unknown rooms, unstable versions of familiar places, bodies of water, and transitions between light and dark. The symbolic languages of different cultures have noticed these consistent patterns for centuries. Whether this consistency reflects shared neural architecture, shared evolutionary history, or something deeper about the relationship between mind and the images it generates remains an open question at the edge of sleep science. The experience of a lucid dream ending, of the awareness beginning to fade as the dream destabilizes, has been studied through first-person reports and compared with the neural transitions that accompany the shift from REM into non-REM sleep. Dreamers describe the visual field beginning to blur, tactile sensations becoming less definite, the narrative coherence unraveling. The effort to hold awareness within a dissolving world is, in its way, a metaphor that the waking mind can recognize from its own experience of trying to remain present as things shift around it. There is evidence that regular lucid dreaming practice is associated with changes in waking metacognition, the capacity to think about one's own thinking. Practitioners who engage in consistent lucid dreaming report increased ability to notice their own cognitive patterns during waking hours, greater ease in stepping outside of their own emotional reactions to observe them, and, in clinical contexts, measurable improvements in certain aspects of psychological flexibility. The skill trained in the dream appears to transfer, at least partially, into the day. What makes lucid dreaming unusual among sleep phenomena is that it involves voluntary engagement with what is otherwise an involuntary process. Sleep, dreaming, the neural transitions between states. None of these are things we consciously choose or control. They happen to us, not because of us. Lucid dreaming inserts a sliver of volition into this involuntary machinery. It is a small but philosophically interesting intrusion of the will into the domain of the automatic. And that intrusion, consistently, reveals that the automatic is richer, stranger, and more responsive to intention than we typically assume. The intellectual answer to our question has now arrived. Lucid dreams are not warning you about anything outside yourself. They are reflecting something inside, the unexamined, the unresolved, the unintegrated. They come most readily to the curious, the reflective, and the stressed, not as disruption, but as signal. They carry what needs carrying into a space where it can be looked at clearly, felt without consequence, and set down with more gentleness than waking life sometimes allows. The dreaming mind waking up inside itself is not sounding an alarm. It is opening a door. You might be feeling tired now. That is perfectly fine. A mountain does not rush to rise. Each millimeter is the result of patience sustained over millions of years. Absolute patience without effort. There is no hurry. Breathe slowly. Feel the cycles. Your heart has beaten more than 2 billion times without a single reminder from you. Your body knows how to take care of itself. Trust that tonight, you are also part of that eternal movement. You don't need to hold on to anything. Let everything unfold in its perfect order, unhurried, unresisting, simply existing. We're almost there now. The dreaming brain is never still. Even in its deepest processing, it is always moving, associating, comparing, constructing, releasing. What changes is not the movement, but the awareness of the movement. Sleep is the only state in which the body is still while the mind continues its long, necessary work. Scientists have found that the brain during lucid dreaming shows a unique blend of neural signatures, patterns associated with both deep sleep and alert wakefulness existing simultaneously in different regions. This coexistence is not instability. It appears to be a functional state, one the brain can enter and sustain for periods ranging from seconds to several minutes at a time. Some individuals report that the content of their lucid dreams changed meaningfully over years of practice. Early lucid dreams were often spent in exploration, testing the physics of the dream world, experimenting with what was possible. Later, lucid dreams became quieter, less concerned with what could be done, more focused on what was simply present. The dream, over time, seemed to become a place for being rather than for doing. There is something called dream stabilization, a set of techniques used by experienced lucid dreamers to prolong the lucid state when it begins to fade. These include touching surfaces within the dream, speaking aloud, and directing careful attention toward visual details. What each technique has in common is the deliberate focusing of awareness on the dream environment, a grounding of consciousness in sensation. This is not coincidentally what many mindfulness practices teach the waking mind to do as well. The boundary between waking and dreaming is not a wall. It is a gradient. As you fall asleep tonight, your brain will pass through a series of transitional states: hypnagogia, then light non-REM sleep, then deeper sleep, then eventually the warm, active territory of REM. In each of these transitions, fragments of awareness sometimes surface, brief, lucid moments that most people do not recognize and cannot hold. They pass through the boundary without noticing the boundary is there. Researchers studying the neuroscience of insight have found that the quiet, internal, slightly unfocused state of mind preceding sleep is among the most generative for creative breakthroughs. The hypnagogic transition, that drifting, loosely associative space between waking and sleep, has been credited with insights by scientists, artists, and inventors across history. The border of consciousness, it turns out, is also a threshold of discovery. The practice of simply noticing, of bringing awareness gently to what is present without trying to change it, appears to be the single most transferable skill between waking life and dreaming. Every technique for inducing lucid dreams ultimately trains the capacity to notice. The dream can become lucid at any moment, inanconten, if awareness is present. What awareness requires is not effort. It requires, simply, attention. There is something quiet at the heart of lucid dreaming research that the papers and protocols sometimes pass over. The people who practice lucid dreaming consistently, who return to the dreaming mind with intention, who learn to wake up inside the dream, often describe a change in how they relate to waking life. Not a dramatic transformation, something smaller and more lasting. The sense that reality, like the dream, is something they are inside of and can gently observe. The watcher does not disappear when the dream ends. REM sleep occurs in multiple cycles through the night, each one longer than the last. The final REM period before morning waking, which may last 30 to 45 minutes, is the richest environment for vivid, complex dreaming, most spontaneous lucid dreams, and most successfully induced ones, occur in this final cycle. The dreaming mind is most awake to itself when the body is closest to the surface of sleep. Some researchers have noted that lucid dreamers show faster habituation to novel stimuli in waking testing, meaning they adjust more quickly to new patterns, integrating them into existing frameworks with less disruption. This cognitive flexibility may be a prerequisite for lucidity, or it may be a consequence of regular lucid dreaming practice. The distinction, ultimately, may not matter. Flexibility and awareness tend to travel together, in sleep and in waking alike. The ancient question of whether dreams mean anything, whether they carry messages, whether they are worth attending to, is not answered simply by science. What science can say is this: dreams are the brain's own language for its own unfinished business. Whether you call that meaning or mechanism, something in the content of a dream that recurs, or that leaves you shaken, or that leaves you, strangely, at peace. Something in that content is a signal from the system that makes you who you are. There is something notable about becoming aware that you are dreaming. The experience is almost always accompanied by a particular quality of feeling. Not fear, not confusion, but something closer to recognition, as though the awareness has arrived at a place it already knew, finding it familiar despite having never consciously visited before. Whatever this feeling is, it appears to be consistent across cultures and across the varied circumstances in which people first find themselves awake inside their own dreaming mind. The brain's capacity to generate an entire sensory world during dreaming, complete with visual depth, sound, tactile sensation, and emotional atmosphere, using nothing but its own stored information, is among the more contemplative things it does. The dreaming mind has no input from the outside world, and yet it constructs something indistinguishable, in the moment, from reality. The lucid dreamer stands within that construction and knows it for what it is. And in knowing that, in holding both the realness and the unreality simultaneously, something about the nature of all experience quietly shifts. The things that lucid dreams most commonly surface are, in the end, small and human and quiet. An avoided conversation, a fear that has been growing in silence, a version of yourself you haven't let yourself grieve, a longing you haven't admitted. The dreaming mind is not oracular. It does not predict the future or reveal hidden truths about the universe. It reflects the present with unusual clarity, in a language made entirely of feeling and image, in a space where it is simply harder to look away. Studies examining the hours following lucid dreaming experiences have found measurable differences in reported mood, cognitive flexibility, and sense of personal agency. Dreamers who had lucid experiences in the preceding night reported feeling, on average, slightly more at ease with their waking circumstances, slightly more curious about their own mental states, and slightly less reactive to minor stressors. The effect is modest, but it is consistent enough to be worth noticing. The ongoing presence of REM sleep throughout life, declining somewhat in quantity with age but never disappearing, speaks to the depth of its biological necessity. Whatever dreaming is doing, the brain considers it non-negotiable. It will recover REM sleep after deprivation with unusual urgency, entering it earlier and sustaining it longer, as though the unseen work of the dreaming mind has accumulated in its absence and must be addressed. The dreaming mind is patient, but it is not optional. There is a quality that some experienced lucid dreamers describe, one that researchers have only recently begun to document carefully. It is the experience of reaching a point in the lucid dream where the desire to control it fades, where the dreamer becomes willing, simply, to be in it, to not redirect, to not experiment, to watch what arises. Practitioners of contemplative traditions recognize this description immediately. It is the difference between using a space and inhabiting it. And in that inhabiting, something often arrives that intentional effort could not have produced. The science of sleep continues to expand in ways that repeatedly give its own practitioners pause. A decade ago, the brain's internal waste clearance system, operating primarily during deep sleep, was largely unknown. 5 years ago, real-time communication from within a verified lucid dream seemed like an implausible goal. What else the sleeping brain is doing? What else it is capable of revealing about consciousness, identity, memory, and the structure of experience remains genuinely open. The history of sleep science is the history of discovering that sleep is stranger and richer than each previous version of the science had imagined. The border between waking and dreaming is, from a certain angle, the same border as the one between the self you show and the self you know. Dreaming loosens the one so the other can move. Lucid dreaming adds a witness, a quiet awareness that neither controls nor retreats, but simply remains present with what the unguarded self is doing in the dark. That witness does not judge. It observes. And in observing, sometimes, it heals. Lucid dreams are trying to show you that the mind watching the dream and the mind making the dream are the same mind. They are trying to show you that awareness is present even in the dark. They are trying to show you that the architecture of your inner life, its fears, its longings, its unfinished stories, is not hidden from you. It is simply waiting for the moment when you remember to look. Tonight, if sleep carries you into a dream, and if you happen to notice, you are dreaming. You will know what to do. You will stay. You will look. And the looking will be enough. The practice of attending to your dreams, not analyzing them with effort, not interpreting them anxiously, but simply noticing them and holding them gently, is itself a form of care. The dreaming mind responds to attention with more coherence. The more you remember your dreams, the more layered they tend to become. The more layered they become, the more clearly they speak. Keeping a journal by the bed. Taking 30 seconds upon waking to lie still and let the imagery settle before reaching for the day. These small gestures communicate something to the dreaming mind. That you are listening. There is a tenderness in what the dreaming brain does each night. It takes the day's experience, all its weight and noise and incompletion, and it works with it. It does not discard it. It does not judge it. It holds it, turns it, places it in relation to what came before and what has been felt before, and looks for the shape of the thing beneath the surface. It does this while you are still. It does this while you are unaware. It does this because you need it done, whether you know it or not. If you have ever woken from a dream, lucid or otherwise, with the sense that something in the dream was true, not literally, but essentially, you have experienced what the dreaming mind is always attempting. Not prediction, not revelation, just recognition. The particular, quiet recognition of something real in the symbolic language of the sleeping mind. That recognition, when it comes, is the brain finishing its work and handing you the result in the only form it has available at that hour. Whatever you carry into sleep tonight will be worked on. It will not be solved, necessarily. It will not be resolved, necessarily. But the brain will take it up, carefully, associatively, in the language of image and sensation and feeling that belongs to the dreaming mind alone. And it will do what it can with it. The dreaming mind is, in the end, a form of care. It is the brain caring for itself, caring for you, in the only hours it has to do so undisturbed. The final truth is this: the lucid dream is not exceptional. It is the dreaming mind at its most transparent, awake enough to notice what it is always doing, to see the process by which meaning is made in the dark, to hold both the dream and the awareness of the dream in the same moment. What it reveals, in that transparency, is not something to guard against. It is, when seen clearly, something closer to tender. The brain, even in sleep, is still trying to understand, still trying to integrate, still carrying you forward into whatever comes next. The signal, if there is one, is also a reassurance. You are being attended to, even now, even here, even in the dark. And so, our quiet journey through the dreaming mind comes gently to a close. We began with a single fact, that within the architecture of ordinary sleep, the observing mind can wake up inside its own creation, and discovered that this small event carries more meaning than its brevity suggests. We passed through the science of the prefrontal cortex awakening within REM sleep, watched the threshold crossed on April 12, 1975, when the first signal ever sent from inside a human dream was recorded on an electroculograph in a quiet laboratory in England. We arrived, finally, at the quietest truth this research offers: that the dreaming mind is not a wilderness. It is a mirror. What it shows, when you look clearly, is always something worth seeing. The dreaming mind reminds us that consciousness is not a switch. It is a gradient, present in sleep, present in waking, present in the strange middle territory that lucid dreaming inhabits. Much of the most important processing of a life happens in silence, in the dark, in the hours no one witnesses. The dreaming brain reveals patience, without effort. Without knowing it is being watched. It tends. By pausing to notice, we glimpse the hidden depths in the ordinary. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can, as deep as possible. Think about unity of every atom, every event, every moment in the universe. You are not separate. You are a link in the endless chain. Think about consciousness itself yours, and the consciousness that wakes inside your dreams, and the long line of awareness that has been observing experience since awareness first arose. Perhaps all connected in ways that science is only beginning to find language for. You are not alone in the universe of minds. Let your entire being dissolve into the ocean of consciousness, into dreamless rest, into the space before thought. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left, only peace. If this quiet exploration of the dreaming mind brought you something tonight, a little peace, a little curiosity, a little gentleness toward the mind that works so carefully while you sleep, perhaps pass it softly to someone else who lies awake tonight, wondering what their dreams are trying to say. A gentle like or subscribe helps another searching mind find its way here. One quiet night, one sleepy soul at a time. But there's no need to do anything now. Nothing at all. You've traveled far tonight, not across distance, but inward, through the corridors of the sleeping mind, through the science of the waking brain that dreams, through the quiet evidence that something in you is always attending, always tending, even when you are not aware that it is. You can allow these thoughts of lucid dreaming to fade now, like the last image of a dream at the edge of waking, present, then softer, then simply part of everything, leaving only the warm, unheld calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if all the watching, all the noticing, all the careful attending of tonight has settled into the ground beneath you and is simply holding you. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way the dreaming mind moves toward its own depths. Not with effort, not with direction, but with the quiet inevitability of water finding the lowest place. Into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, the dreaming mind will still be there, still patient, still working, still holding what needs to be held. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, gentle explorer. And remember, even the most searching mind deserves, finally, to rest. Good night.